We got to remember that 95% of African American businesses across the country, and surely in the state of California, are they're single owners. They don't have any employees.
Yeah.
95% of our businesses are without an employee. So oftentimes they don't even qualify for the programs that's put in front of us.
Well, first of all, in fact, nationally, there are 2.6 million black-owned businesses. To your point,
right,
2.5 million have one employee.
Right.
Only 100,000 black businesses in America have more than one employee. Go ahead, Jay.
So I know this is just a chopped up excerpt of a broader conversation that these two had, but right here, you already see the problem starting to develop. The contradiction between the claim that there is this, as you'll see in a minute, more than $1 trillion in buying power, and the reality that black businesses, A, aren't big enough to hire more black people, in part because B, black people don't have enough money to support those businesses, allowing those businesses to expand, hire more people, take in more business, and have that business somehow be redistributed back into the black community. In terms of the collective, a focus on even supporting black-owned businesses is not sufficient if we're talking about healing the inequality of the whole. But let's continue.
That's right. So we started getting calls, not just on the weekdays, but on the weekends. People didn't know how to fill out the SBA loan application. And right now, Wells Fargo was being sued because they shuffled the paperwork. In other words, companies that were large companies where they could get bigger fees for doing their paperwork, they moved them to the front of the line. So even when you did all the things that you were supposed to do the right way, you got pushed back. Now, let me say this, Roland, I'm not surprised. And this is a history of this country. So as black folk, we spend between 1.2 and 1.5 trillion dollars a year. We're recorded as the number 9 to number 11 economy in the world. So it's not like we don't have money.
Right.
Again, this is misunderstood and simply not true. First, it's important to note, again, this contradiction that I do play out in the book, that between the white supremacist, anti-black capitalist structure that works against black people collectively advancing, whereas he's just explaining Wells Fargo can take advantage of another advantage that black people cannot. But then in the very next breath, the return to the focus on this mythological buying power, which is then used to, as you'll see, to critique black people for being poor, for having a lack of financial literacy, and somehow inhibiting our own progress or advance. And this is, again, how the myth is very pernicious in its ability to falsely project a reality and an economic potential that doesn't exist, while also blaming black people for being poor, furthering confusion around how the economy actually works and functions. But we'll continue.
We have to now start becoming responsible to us and for us. We have to become more financially literate, and we have to start looking for, especially now, we have to look out for African-American small business owners.
So this is, again, part of the, within the black community, class distinction and contradiction that I do talk a little bit about in the book that I think needs to be played out. What is couched as collective black advance is really more of a focus on how to transfer more money, to the extent that it does exist, to black business owners. But as was already said, there aren't enough black business owners who have enough business or an expansive business to hire enough employees to have their business actually make an impact on the black community as a whole, which again is why all of this ends up benefiting only a small few within the Black community that are business owners of any note, and allows for there to be these class divisions within an already wildly unequal condition. Similarly, you hear the reference to this often misunderstood myth of the comparison of Black collective spending to the gross domestic product or GDP of entire countries, where you get these claims that Black people collectively are a top 10 economy in the world. But this is misunderstood, not to mention all the extended conversations about what do those countries' economies mean in terms of their relationship to the broader global economy. A lot of smaller countries' economies may sound big, but they really have a colonial relationship to the broader global community, economy that is. But the other part of it is that, as many economists have pointed out, GDP is never used or not appropriately used to describe the inequality within a country. It is a measure of the value of the goods, products, and services of in a given country in a given year, but which is really a measurement of the value of the wealth produced for the owners of those goods, services, and products, which, as we just saw in terms of the Black businesses, are not Black people. So we can't keep using these misunderstood figures and claims to assess the financial condition or economic condition of Black people or any community, and then to have that somehow be turned around and used against that community for, again, a lack of financial literacy. By the way, I hope you all notice, as I think is pretty clear, this is how the process of the propaganda also works, by the way, because even though I did clip this interview, if you watch the entire thing, as is often the case, there's never a reference to where those claims of buying power dollars come from. It's just mentioned and regurgitated over and over and over again. But when you do, as I've done in the book, go through and actually draw down on their origins, they come back to two sources, Nielsen and the Selig Center, neither of which have a strong or solid methodology and base a lot of what they do on market projections and estimates. It has nothing to do with the actual economic condition of Black people or anybody else. A lot more at imixwhatilike.org. Please check us out there and sign up for the May 25th virtual book launch party with me, special guests, musical performances, and a lot more. So thanks again. imixwhatilike.org. Peace, everybody.
What is the MOBP? The myth of Black buying power claims that A, Black people misspend more than $1 trillion every year. B, that this lack of financial literacy prevents Black people from closing the income and wealth gaps. And C, inhibits the development of political movements in favor of a sole focus on economics. The new book by Dr. Jarrett Ball, The Myth and Propaganda of Black Buying Power, challenges this myth by showing its origins, how it evolved, and is now maintained.